Well, it's a drug investigation gone terribly wrong. A Massachusetts drug lab is closed pending an investigation amid accusations that tens of thousands of drug samples were mishandled. The Massachusetts governor has released figures showing that the manager conducted a, quote, unusually high volume of testing between 2004 and 2011. And as the attorney general investigates, thousands of criminal convictions and pending cases remain in the balance. To talk more about this, independent journalist Rania Khalek joins us now. Rania, welcome. So it's unclear at this point what the motive is, but I guess the question is, why would anybody do this?
Well, we don't know yet. That's still quite a mystery of how this happened and why this happened. But there does seem to be people who were trying to keep this under wraps, and that's unfortunate. But I think this goes to show how easy it is, or not how easy it is, but I think this goes to show the enormous consequences that this can have on the criminal justice system. And you know, it also shows that, you know, how do we know that this isn't happening in other places, in other labs? And are there standards? Why wasn't there any oversight? I mean, how was this going on for so long? These are questions that are being asked. And that, I mean, I guess hopefully will be answered soon.
And that's exactly it. I mean, it took place between 2004 and 2011. That's a pretty considerable amount of time. We're talking thousands and thousands of cases allegedly mishandled. You would think that throughout this time frame that there were some red flags.
There did seem to be some red flags, according to the few reports we've seen out. For beginning as early as 2011, but again, that, you know, the question should be, why weren't there red flags raised before that? There should be some level of oversight in these labs. I mean, these are the results that you're getting from drug lab tests, or whether it's forensic lab tests. I mean, this is affecting cases and convictions, and, you know, there could be people right now behind bars who shouldn't be behind bars, who shouldn't have sentences that are as long as they are, because according to reports, I mean, these drug samples were mishandled to the point where some samples were made bigger than others. Evidence was messed with. I mean, this is serious stuff. There's like 34,000 cases that'll be affected by this. And I mean, there's also the question of, what about people who were undocumented immigrants who have been convicted? I mean, if you're an undocumented immigrant, you're convicted of a drug felony, you will be deported. And so that's another concern, is there are people who have been deported as a result of this. So there's not really a way you can always fix these kinds of things, and that's unfortunate as well.
Sounds like there's a lot of serious implications in this for thousands of people. Ron, you do have a clip of the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Judy Ann Bigby. Let's take a listen to what she said to a local news station there.
We have an incredible sense of anger and disappointment that an individual chemist could create so much chaos in the criminal justice system.
And there she raises an interesting question there. I mean, how can one person create so much chaos, a lot of responsibility in the hands of one person? Apparently, it went unchecked. How could that happen? And could this be going on elsewhere in other jurisdictions?
You know, that's the problem with a lot of the processes we use to examine evidence around the country in various jurisdictions, is that there aren't, in a lot of cases, national standards. There aren't oversight committees. There aren't accountability measures in place to make sure that this stuff is being handled correctly, and ways to catch these mistakes when they happen. So yeah, you're right. I mean, this one person created all this havoc, this one chemist, and that shouldn't be the case. And this is a problem not just with this one situation with the drug lab, but also, if you think about it, I mean, we don't have national standards. We don't have oversight committees, except for a very few small amount of places when it comes to forensic evidence as well. We don't have national standards in place, or oversight committees, or ways to hold police accountable when they're showing witnesses lineups for eyewitness identification. I mean, there's all these different processes of the criminal justice system that go unchecked, and where people, a small amount of people, have all this power over convicting, you know, over these cases where people get convicted, and there's nobody looking to see how it's getting handled, and if there's any reason to believe that it's getting mishandled.
I mean, I guess if other jurisdictions can take a look at what's happening in Massachusetts and ask how can we prevent this from happening here, how can other states prevent it from happening in their very own jurisdictions, whether it is instating some of these oversight committees that you just mentioned?
Well, I mean, the best way to do that is to look to science. There are many validated methods of ways to examine evidence, and ways to deal with evidence where it can be, where you can make sure that it won't be mishandled, or you can make sure that if any red flags show up, there will be a sort of like a system of, more than one person, more than one chemist checking, or somebody looks over the results and oversees the results. I mean, having oversight committees, having standards that everybody has to follow, not having a single chemist be doing tens of thousands of drug tests, all on their own.
Does this kind of raise the issue or the question of how faulty or reliable are drug tests? I mean, especially when these tests are being used to dictate the fate of a person?
Well, again, that's when that's when we should be turning to science to show us what is the most accurate method of doing these things. And when it comes to the criminal justice system, time and again, we've seen that it's not necessarily the science that's wrong. It's the way it's being dealt with. It's the way it's being done. It's the fact that people don't know how, the people being put in charge of doing forensic, dealing with forensic evidence or dealing with the drug samples don't know what they're doing. They're not properly trained. So that's an issue as well.
Certainly, there should be checks at least to prevent human error. Rania, great to have you on the show. That was Rania Kalik, an independent journalist.
Thank you for having me.